Getting in touch with automotive history is invaluable experience. I have a secret place, about which you know, where I can touch the history and tell you more about it. It's the collection of the Kamishmash, a retro gallery restaurant called La Colline. So, Talbot, Talbot. It all depends on your nationality. Why is that? Well, it's quite simple. In 1902, a bold Frenchman, Adolphe Clément, was building a rear-engined four-wheeled cars, but he wanted more, and something serious. So he decided to conquer Old England and found a partner in the person of the English Earl of Shrewsbury and Talbot. The Earl gave money, named the company Clement Talbot, and it was on. What happens next is a hell of a mess. The Earl got tired. Clement Talbot merged with the company Dara. Then they start having some problems, and the factory in the French Suresnes splits up and starts being called Talbot. Hold on a second. I get it. It's all very long. But what I'm getting at is this. Eventually, the English company completely split off and became known as Talbot. Well, Talbot. So, suddenly there were two Talbots in the world. Talbot and Talbot. Well, something like that. But at the same time, all the Talbots were part of the same concern, but practically did not interact with each other. I'm not gonna go deeper into this complicated relationship of the French-English business. You will get confused. Moreover, even then, buyers were confused when they saw cars with names that included the word Talbot. It is no secret that at the beginning of the last century, most automakers produced just the chassis and the bodyworks. They were built by third-party manufacturers, bodywork studios. Today, it sounds cool. But back then, all bodywork studios were basically carriage shops and nothing more. And they built bodies according to the principle of carriages, with an engine. Naturally, fashion and technology were evolving, but the essence remained the same. On a massive frame, which would do honor to the truck, a body without a hood was put on. In the Talbot DC series, and this precisely it, there were 7 variations of civilian cars and 1 pseudo-sporty model. But that doesn't mean you couldn't show off and order something original. This particular body was made in what could be called a couture workshop in Château-Ponsac in western France. We have a phaeton body type, which means we have a soft folding roof but no side windows. Well, they used to go in here. So, the carriage. Wooden frame is sheathed with metal, with tin. If we talk about exterior, the only thing that visually unites all the bodies is the hood section and the radiator grille. The hood is rounded oval, which is a signature style. Headlights hover on the bulkhead between the fenders, which can take on any shape you want, as well as the windshield. What else is invariable? As I mentioned before, suspension, leaf springs everywhere. And for those times that was normal. Again, the carriage theme. But now there are shock absorbers. Well, they are friction disc shock absorbers, also known as Andrea Hartford dampers. This construction was used until the 1930s. Then they were replaced by oil ones. The front axle is an I-beam under the packs of leaf springs, the ends of which are attached to the extended ends of the frame. This solution allows to lower the height of the car. The rear part of the frame is also raised above the axle. The rear suspension is spring-based. To shift the rear axle closer to the rear, the axle is placed on one end of the leaf spring, like on our Gaz AA. This mounting method is known as cantilever and propeller shaft in a tube, like in the Gaz AA. It also serves as a power element. There is a brass hinge at the point of connection to the gearbox. As you can imagine, the place is weak and the bushing can quickly wear out. Otherwise, the construction of the car is like any other. There is no trunk. A tank is here. Sticks on top. They protect the tank from the load. On these bars here, you can either place a suitcase or a clothing trunk. And there were variations with whole rattan baskets. The most controversial solution is the exhaust pipe, which is attached directly to the tank. Those steering rods are clearly visible here. Pay attention to power-driven front brakes. There are springs on the sides that hold the caps in place, like stretched-out watch springs instead of rubber bands. But there's a little hinge of equal angular speeds inside that allows the mechanical drive to push the brake pads during turn. So there's a kind of floating drive shaft there. Well, whatever. There were few engine options for Talbot, specifically for this model. Only one. A gasoline inline 4 with a displacement of 1,596 cubic centimeters, with reported power ranging from 40 to 45 horsepower at 4,000 revolutions per minute. The engine has a bronze Solix carburetor. The gas distribution mechanism is driven by gears right under this cover. The camshaft rotates as a result of the gears, which drives the pump and generator. And no, it's not a magneto. This is a Delco ignition distributor. Here should be spare spark plugs, and in that basket over there, a liter of oil in a tin can. Definitely Castrol. How does the fuel system work? That's a whole different story. Here, through this hose, with the help of discharged air and inlet manifold, the gasoline from the tank is sucked into this receiver, right here, and then it goes from there to the gas pump. And the gas pump works in a special way. But more on that later. The interior of the car also carries the aura of carriage art, and it's fantastic. The meticulousness of such an interior is impressive. Lots of leather, padding, horsehair, and plenty of wood. The rear seat is luxurious, as is the leather upholstery of the doors with pockets. The steering wheel is on the right, as the car was primarily designed for English customers, but it is more comfortable to get into the car from the other side, and I will show you why. Here's the handbrake and the gearbox. Alright, let's talk about dashboard. Speedometer, marked up to 120 kilometers. The arrow moves in the opposite direction. Ammeter, highly pressure gauge. Swiss watches on Swiss factory and litre d'essence. There's air carburetor control switch damper adjuster, manual control, start button, and a carriage barn nameplate. That's it! Well, you can also crack open the windshield a little to let in a sea breeze or a gentle rustling of leaves. In short, if it's hot. Here, ignition timing. Just so you can see. You've got to turn on the mass. It's hidden under the wood floor. Like at your grandmother's cellar. One lid. Two lids. A mass. This thing. A button. And off we go. Carburetor switch. Honestly, the car lacks in engine displacement and 40 horses. I'm subconsciously used to the old power and big liters. And there's a weak engine under the hood. So the acceleration is very gradual. Also, soothingly dull. But mind you, it's 1926. There were cars even more dismal back then. Some sources claim that the car could go up to 100 kilometers an hour. Others say 80. But where were you supposed to rush back then? It's nice to take it slow. It's a different rhythm, different feelings. The birds are singing, but I can't hear them. It's too loud with all the howling and the smell of gasoline. And where's the rush anyway? Cricket, now poker, in the evening. Here, by the way, there's a very progressive braking system for that time, from Perrault. I've shown it to you. Drum brakes on all wheels, but more often they were installed only on the rear. It's a carriage ride, no other way to put it. The engine lacks power, but it still pulls through, and its range. Right now, I'm driving in third gear at about 20 kilometers per hour. And as I press harder on the gas pedal, it starts to accelerate. Slowly, doesn't like hills, only first gear and hysterical screaming all around. Makes you want to ride in the back. But sorry, I haven't hired any chauffeurs yet. The Talbot DS started production in 1923 and was successfully produced until 1926. Depending on the body and aesthetic features, the car was expensive, from 28 to 30,000 francs. But the model was loved for reliability, first of all, driving qualities and rather fashionable look. Design solutions applied in the car are still relevant today. Then, again, more often, people rode in the back seat and hired chauffeurs for driving. Three-speed gearbox naturally, unsynchronized. And the fact that the gear shift knob is on the right is nice. But as I'm sitting on the right, I'm looking for it on the left. And on the right side, the handbrake gets in the way. It's got a 3-meter base, the suspension is soft. The steering does take some time getting used to. The turning radius is amazing. The leaf-sprung suspension is fabulous. It's not like those stupid springs. And it's almost impossible to puncture the suspension. But to break a wheel, that's easy. Since they're wooden, like in a carriage, they ideally should have fancy Michelin tires. Pretty much everything back then was either Michelin or Goodyear, well, sometimes Dunlop. Approximately 6,800 cars were built in total, and 1,400 examples of the Talbot DC have survived to this day. Each one is closely monitored, so the history of this car is almost all known. In America, they call them barn finds. It's as if they spent long, lonely years standing in an abandoned garage or barn for years and have been preserved in pristine condition. A bit worn out, but so alive. The restorers from Kamishmash just brought it back to life and got it running again. So, in this condition, it has remained to this day. So, here's what we know. In 1955, the car was registered in the Aube department in the northeast France. Then it was sold. And since 1970, the car has had 2 owners. By the way, the serial number, Type DC 55539, indicates that this is one of the last cars of this model, made in the first third of 1926th year. Today, the car is part of the Kamishmash collection, the retro gallery of the restaurant Le Calin. the firms Talbot and Talbot no longer exist. However, their cars are inscribed in automotive history and we are studying it. The hunt continues.